All right, guys, we're about to go live with Kieran Mitchell this morning with the Gaelic Athletic Association. So I got recording on both ends and the pod being. All right, guys, we're about to go live for my interview with Kieran Mitchell on Podbean. I got it on two sources today. I'll be recording it, and I'm going to be doing Facebook Live. And Kieran is going to be hooking up with us in a couple of minutes. As soon as I hit the live button on the Podbean app, we should be ready to rock and roll. Let's just give a second. All right, here it is. Go live. All right, 9:58. All right, guys. All right, I'm about to go live, and hopefully this all works out. And Kieran will be there to shed some light on the great sport of Gaelic football and the Gaelic Athletic Association of Dutchess County. So 9:58. Let's start it up right now. All right, Kieran, I don't know if you're watching, but I'm about to hit the start button, and hopefully this all links up good. All righty, guys. Welcome to a special edition of the Murph and E-Dubs Show. This is Murph going solo today. E-Dubs is again on a mission, so I'll be doing my interview today. I've been promoting it all week. I'm doing my interview with Kieran Mitchell. Now, Kieran Mitchell is the chairman and co-founder of the Gaelic Athletic Association. Now, the Gaelic Athletic Association of Dutchess County is doing some wonderful things, and I'm hoping that Kieran is able to figure out if he's able to figure it out. We'll wait and see. 10 o'clock, I told him, so maybe he's waiting. I'm just going to shoot him a quick text here and let him know. All right. Okay, I just went live, Kieran. Just wondering if you're able to sign on. All right, guys, as usual, a couple of little technical difficulties. Waiting for Kieran to sign on. This is going to be a pretty interesting interview, guys. Anybody out there, all my friends watching or listening, if you guys are looking for another sport to get your kids involved in, you know, hey, Kieran, you there?
Hey, am I in here? Can you hear me?
Yeah, hey, Kieran, how you doing, brother? I can hear you perfectly. How you doing?
I'm good, thanks. How about yourself?
I'm doing fantastic. So, we got some people listening. We are live now. I turned off the call-in button, so you're not going to get anybody calling in. So, it's just going to be me and you talking. And just like you maybe introduce yourself to the people out there.
Sure, yeah. So my name is Kieran Mitchell. I'm fortunately one of the co-founders of the Dutchess County GAA. I've been here since the beginning. Our organization was founded in either September or October of 2019. I forget which month it exactly was. By another local guy named CJ Thomas Skovic. He's our founder of the whole organization. I fortunately had met CJ earlier that year in like March of 2019. He was putting the program together, asked me to serve on the board, and the rest is history. That we'll hopefully get to later in this podcast. But I've been in Dutchess County the vast majority of my life. I'm 27 now. Let's see, I was 4 and my family came up here from Somers, so a lot of deep roots that I have here in the county and the local area. I love doing things for the community, and the GAA, the Gaelic Athletic Association, was just something that really piqued my interest as somebody who is very, very passionate about their Irish heritage and very involved in the community. So looking forward to discussing more details about it with you here.
Yeah, absolutely. I was doing a lot of reading yesterday on your organization and the sport as a whole. And what I found very interesting is I was on your guys' page, and now the mission of the GAA. We're gonna go into a little bit of the history, a little later. But I noticed that the mission, you guys have a specific mission, and from what I understand from reading, the mission of the GAA has held true ever since it's been, its inception back in the 1880s. And you pretty much have the same mission today. Can you explain for the people out there what your mission is? Because it's definitely different than what we have around here, Little League and football. You guys have a very specific mission in mind when you're coaching and coaching these young men and women.
Yeah, yeah. So I would say ours. I don't know what the GAA as a whole mission statement is, but ours is definitely pretty similar to it. We might vary a slight bit, but effectively, what we strive to do, and don't quote me on this verbatim, but it's something along the lines of looking to serve the youth and adults of Dutchess County by teaching them the traditional Gaelic sports from Ireland, and really tying all into that the entire culture of Ireland, whether that might be music, dance, history, the Irish language, all surrounding the traditional Gaelic sports of Gaelic football, hurling, camogie, which camogie is actually the female counterpart to the sport of hurling. Varies a little bit with the rules. I couldn't tell you the exact differences of camogie versus hurling. I can tell you a bit about hurling later on. And I think that the biggest takeaway from that, which I know is part of our mission statement as well, is and it's a motto that we tote as often as we can, is really whether you're Irish by birth, Irish by descent, or Irish in spirit, all are welcome. You don't have to be Irish whatsoever to be a member of our organization. One of the great things about the GAA is really just the inclusivity of the program and how unique the Gaelic sports are.
So, I mean, they are very unique, and unfortunately, a lot of people in the area, really don't know too much about it. Like I was fortunate enough to, when I was younger, I you would go down to Gaelic Park and watch the Gaelic football games against the policemen and the firemen. But yeah, I mean, the sport as a whole, I would love it to get out there to all the people out here, thinking about a different sport. But one thing I did pick out, Kieran, is that you guys definitely push, not push, but it's definitely not that you guys teach the Irish language. Now, it seems to be very important that I know the guys that are like, the big players, the professional players and everything. I know when they get up there and they accept their awards stuff. They do speak in the the native Irish language. Now, it seems to be very important to you guys that you teach the Irish language to the children that are participating in your organization. Now, it seems like it's a pretty hard language to follow. Is it easy for these children to learn? Is it hard? And I really do love the fact that you're teaching a different language and giving more knowledge to the children of our community.
Well, I'm sure it's easier for the kids than it is for older people. Even those who are my age, I'm sure have a harder time than the kids do with picking it up. So we tried actually offering our own classes through our program. It turned out to be a little bit too difficult. So what we actually ended up doing, and which we continue to do, is to partner with an organization out of Albany named the Two Rivers Gaelic League. So our own members will receive a discount when signing up with them, and I don't know if there's any free spots left right now, but we're actually, I'll say, are running a special with the Two River Gaelic League right now, where a certain number of Dutchess GAA members can get free classes through them virtually. So we can, give out more information on that later if need be. But yes, to answer your question, the Irish language is an intrinsic part of the GAA, and one of the pillars of the founding of the GAA was to promote the Irish culture as a whole. So really, at every turn, if you were to go on to a GAA page from any of the counties in Ireland, they will often have bits and pieces of a snippet in English accompanied right next to it by what that how that is said in Irish. So it's really important that to the GA as a whole that we try to preserve that, because it's not necessarily, I know a lot of people say the Irish language is dying. I wouldn't say it's dying. It's definitely dwindled. But it's something that, as part of our identity, whether you're living in Ireland or an Irish American like myself, it's very important to us that we try to continue promoting the Irish language and get it in front of people as much as possible, so that they might pique an interest or they might learn a few words here and there. But the most important part is to try and get the kids while they're young to be exposed to the language, because that's when they're going to have the most opportunity to retain it and hopefully stick with it for the rest of their life, learning it and taking classes and then being able to use it for the rest of their life. You take somebody like myself. I was probably 24 when I first started taking Irish language classes, and it was a lot. It was tough. I think I did a pretty good job picking up a good amount of words here and there and phrases, but I'm by no means conversational, and I just didn't have the time to keep up with it, unfortunately. But kids are in a different stage of life where if we start with them, teach them the language, at least expose them to it, the odds of continuing to preserve that part of our culture are definitely greater.
Now that again, that stuck out to me because I think that I think the youth of today, like they're pretty much they just get up and they go to school and they learn what they learn, and just and then they just come home. I think that the fact that what you guys are doing over there is Now, along with the language that you guys are teaching them, are you? I mean, if you're a child, you know, a youth that comes in there, and maybe he doesn't have any Irish background. Now, do you have any kids in your program that don't have Irish background, but have kind of came into your organization and kind of been very receptive to learning the language and kind of the history of like, you know, the Irish culture and the Irish language and the sports itself? Like, are there any kids involved in your program that aren't from Irish descent that are just kids that say, hey, this is pretty cool?
We have tons of kids in our program that have no Irish in them or very little. Um, I don't know how many we have that are taking Irish language classes that have no Irish in their background, specifically because we're kind of like a funnel into that program, so we don't always know which of our members are even taking the classes at any point in
Gotcha.
time. I do know that there definitely are a handful of kids that are currently taking or have taken some of the beginner level Irish language courses with the Two Rivers Gaelic League. But again, I don't know how many are actively taking it. But
Gotcha.
to kind of build off that question, there's definitely a plethora of kids in our program that have absolutely no Irish in their background, heritage, or they might have it, but they're really just part of our organization because of their love of the game, um, and that's how they got connected to it.
Right. And you know, my mother's actually very excited for this interview. I told her she's listening right now. That's the reason why I'm answering it because I was looking at some of your pictures yesterday, and your mom seems to be very similar to my mom. And it seems to be that you know, with you getting involved in all this, you know, with the GAA and stuff, you know, just with you, it just seems like your mom would probably be pretty happy, you know, about. She seems like she's a woman that enjoys her Irish heritage and Irish culture, like my mom as well. And it seems that we have very parallel lives when it comes to that because I love going to the parades, the festivals. You know, I wear the clothes. You know, it's and my mother is just like, you know, I don't know if I told you, like we call my mom the Shamrock Lady. It's pretty funny because
Yeah, you did say that.
there's
Yeah.
shamrocks and Irish stuff all over my parents' house. But yeah, it's she's very, as you know, as you guys are. We're pretty you know, our Irish heritage stays pretty true in the Murphy house. So you know, my mom's listening right now, and she's very excited about this interview, Kieran. She's actually said she'd like to meet you, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah, we can arrange that for sure. And I'd like to say, I don't know what kind of follow up question you have coming from there, but I would like to say, just to build on that, it's definitely this sort of generational and knowledge gap that we're looking to bridge. Not only by creating the GAA here in Dutchess County, but through the everyday work that we have. Because I mean, I myself never got involved with and knew little to no anything about the GAA until I got involved with this organization. And I'm somebody who's, you know, my entire life been extremely passionate about my Irish heritage. I mean, my friends always joke that I'm the only person they know that it's acceptable to say that my personality is being Irish. And yet, here I am, wasn't involved in the GAA until, my adult years. So despite my family's zeal for our Irish heritage and everything, we just never got involved in it. And that's something that I think there's a big gap where even Irish Americans don't know what the GAA is and what it's all about or what Gaelic football is. I can't tell you how many times we get asked, oh, Gaelic football, that's rugby, right? And no, this is the way it works. These are the details.
Right, right, and that's you know, and I think you make a very good point about the youth today, and you know, and the parents as well, because you know, I come from a place like I was telling you from baseball, and you know, I coached baseball for a long time, and I just watched the little leagues in the area kind of slowly deteriorate, and I really think that that's just kind of like the lack of, and I was starting to see it at the end of my run as a coach, like where a lot of these mothers and fathers, like they come and they just drop their kids off, and they think it's kind of like a no, I think it's kind of like a babysitting service, you know, and they come
Mhm.
back and pick you up at 2 hours later, and hopefully the kids learn something. But I'm very passionate about, you know, my interest in this coaching and the sport of baseball. And I'm just, again, looking at your guys. You guys do it so much better because everything is volunteer driven. And it's just hard to get volunteers. It's hard to get volunteers even to coach the sport around here because sometimes you look at some of these moms and dads, it's like, you know, they sign them up for a sport and it's like, you know, well, we need volunteers. That's how our programs run. And, you know, you guys volunteering to coach. That's how it continues, you know, to keep our program running. And it seems to me like you guys have a lot of very involved parents that are willing to take that jump and be very involved in their kids' lives because, you know, there's not a lot of dialogue between people these days. And anybody that listens to my show, in our show, like I just really stress dialogue between people outside, and especially dialogue between parents and children. And I think you might be right about that because Parents just, their kids come home and they go in their rooms and they don't really talk to them. Like, I go a different route. I discuss everything with my kids. But I think you're right about that, Kieran, is like, there might be a divide in like the communication barrier between the children and the parents.
Yeah, and I've got a couple points to build on with that, and firstly, we're fortunate that that dynamic isn't existent in our program. Parents don't just drop off their kids and disappear. It's very much a community gathering for us. When there's practice or there's a game, whatever it might be, the parents come, kids come out on the field, and the parents line up their what do you call those, like lawn chair, folding chair things out, and they sit there and they all socialize and talk and watch. And some of the parents that want to get involved in the coaching and the drills will come out onto the field and help out the coaches to do so. It's amazing. And as somebody that's played sports my entire life, when I was growing up as well, that was pretty much non-existent. It was like you said, a lot of parents that would just drop off their kids and go run errands, go to the grocery store, whatever that might be. But it's a very different dynamic and experience with us. It's very much a community social kind of experience where everyone just gets together and it's like an opportunity to see your friends while your kids are practicing for them. And the other thing that I'd mention as well, as somebody who's played baseball my entire life, I quit playing baseball to start this program. I was playing in the Hudson Valley National Adult Baseball Association until I was 24. Um, I really think one of the big things that is a draw for us, and unfortunately has been a detriment to the baseball programs around the country, is I don't know, maybe kids don't have the attention span for baseball anymore because it can be a very slow game in their
Right.
early years until they get more advanced. A lot of sitting around picking daisies in the outfield because
Mm.
many kids struggle with the skills that are required, and that's been, I think, a big draw for us, is the excitement of Gaelic football and how much scoring there is, how fast paced it is, where the kids are constantly involved on the field. There's no sitting around and waiting for something to happen because you're always involved in something. So between that and then the dangers of sports like American football, that a lot of folks have talked about in recent years, we've definitely seen massive appetite for what we're doing.
And and again, that's just a great thing to me because I have a community of friends up here. Like I can tell you right now, I wasn't born up here. I was born down in Queens, but I'm up here about 17, 18 years, and just the involvement of both of my sons in just starting out at little league level. Starting out at t-ball. I have literally, and there's people listening right now. I have literally met some of my best friends just through volunteering and coaching. And I would see that as when I first moved up here, my kids were younger, we had a very, very good core group of guys that really cared. We'd be there in the morning cleaning the fields. We'd be there coaching. We'd help out the other coaches. And I think we had a really tight knit group of guys. But it just seems to me like, it's like, I don't know about you, but I drive by, I'm 50, I get kind of emotional in my older years now, but I drive by Shepherd sometime. That's the baseball field by us. And on a random Wednesday night in June, I don't see anybody there. Or it's like I can remember maybe 7 or 8 years ago, but on a random Wednesday in June, that place was packed. The concession stand was going. The parents were hanging out. They were talking. Now it's just nothing. And I'm trying to figure out for the life of me why that is. But maybe it is because they're going to different sports like your organization, where it is more inclusive and more fun, and like it becomes it's not a chore for the coaches to coach, and the coaches are actually having fun. Like I get a lot of credit from a lot of the guys in my area where I was always out there and I was always making it fun for the kids. I was always grabbing that kid that was a little, he really didn't know how to swing a bat. I was always loved to teach the kids. And I think that kids see that, coaches on their phone off to the side or stuff like that. And so if the coaches don't care, maybe the kids aren't going to really care. And maybe they are going to gravitate to a sport like yours and an organization like yours where, oh, wow, I matter here.
Exactly. And it's funny, funny but not funny that you say that. Is we're based in the town of Unionville at the beautiful Time War Park. If you're not familiar with that area, if you drive by on Brusgall Road, it's called, you can see our field with our GAA goals and everything set up there. There's two baseball fields right adjacent to our field that we play football on. I don't think I can name a single time to you that I've ever seen somebody playing baseball or softball on those fields.
Yeah, it's and
Yeah.
it's progressed slowly, has progressed, and it's on a downturn. And well, I'm trying. And listen, me personally, I'm trying to get to where all youth sports, if you even if your kid's not that athletic, or even just all kids have to kind of be involved in something, and like all kids have to feel like they matter, and they have. It's not that you have to like single them out, but you have to let them know that they matter, and that's very important for children. And and again, it also starts at the parental level too. Having the parents involved and having the parents volunteering, and your kid's going to turn and say, "Oh, wow, my dad's coaching, or my dad's working the concession stand." I think the kids see that in their eyes, like, all right, even if they really at the end of the day don't want the parents, I don't want you here, dad, or they may say that, but they really want their parents there, and everybody to get involved, and that's what struck me as with your organization. Now I want to go into the volunteering aspect for a second, just like a little more, because it seems to me like not that parents. It seems to me the parents are like you require them to volunteer. Now by requiring them to volunteer, I'm not saying that you guys better volunteer or else. The requirement to volunteering it goes so far because you guys do so much events like you do breakfast with Santa, you do your friendsgiving, and I just go far back as you have barbecues and fundraisers, and all these parents, like, you don't have to worry about these parents coming in to volunteer because, like you said, you just set the atmosphere where it's just a great atmosphere and they want to come down and they're learning something new and their kids are happy. And I like the fact that you make it where the parents kind of have to volunteer. Do you have a problem in your organization with some kind of parent saying, "Can I just write a check?" You know what I mean?
We haven't had that problem yet, fortunately.
Good. Good. Now,
Yeah.
how is that? Now,
And
as far as now, obviously, obviously your coaches are all volunteers as well. Am I correct in saying that?
exactly. Yep.
Okay. Now, when you have like a dad that comes down, maybe you have this big, kind of big dad, doesn't look like really he's too athletic, but he wants to come down. He says, "You know what, Kieran?" He's like, "I would love to volunteer." Now, that's a guy that, from what I read, any one of your people in your organization or coaches or anybody is more than willing to sit down and describe the rules and describe everything to these people if they want to volunteer. Am I correct in saying that?
You're correct. Yep. Exactly.
So if my son wanted to get involved in Gaelic football, or if I know nothing about it, I say, "Listen, Kieran, can we sit down for an hour to explain the rules to me so I could at least get a little gist of what's going on?" So that I really like that
Thousand
about you guys.
percent.
It's really good.
Yes. Yes. I didn't want to cut you off. I didn't know if you had any more questions there, but the GAA as a whole and the New York GAA, which is a subsect of the GAA internationally, um, they provide so many resources for anyone that wants to get involved and to learn. There are coaching certification classes that actually, in order to be a head coach, you must complete in order to be a coach of a team. We obviously have assistant coaches that help with practices, or if a head coach can't make it to a game or whatever. But to be a head coach of a team of the kids, you must complete the coaching certification course. And through that coursework, you do an online segment where you learn the rules of the game. You you know maybe get some rudimentary quizzes, nothing like you might have done in school or anything like that, but just what is this position called, or what would happen as far as the rules go when this situation occurs, sort of a thing. And we have taken from those materials that come from that coursework and put together effectively a welcome packet, as we call it. Every time a new family registers for our program, they receive a link to this welcome packet. I'm not sure if that's something that I shared with you in advance of this call or not, but I want to say it's about 10, 11 pages long, something like that. And it starts out with a brief history of the GAA, brief history on us, the rules of the game, the positions that the players are on the field, and their numbers, because the number jersey you wear technically means the position that you are on the field, for example. All these different things that every parent gets access to when they join us, so that those who wish to take that extra step from the sideline onto the field and be involved with the coaching and just learning about the sport are empowered and enabled to do that. It's very, very important to us. It's very, very important to the GAA as a whole. In fact, it's something that, as a coach, when you're going through that certification process and learning from the New York GAA representatives, they actually strongly encourage you to say, try and get the parents off the sidelines at practices to help you with the coaching, even if it's something so simple as catching a ball from the kids in the middle of the drill and passing it back to them in the middle of the drill and not actually running a drill, just to get them involved and learning about the game and out there with you, and potentially piquing their interest. That's sort of a pillar of the GAA as a whole. And to sort of take a tangent from that, the GAA is built on volunteerism. It's really the foundation of the entire organization. even what we would call the professional players, quote unquote, over in Ireland, they're not professionals. They're amateurs. They're not paid to play. These guys they go out and they play those matches. They train however many days a week. They wake up the next day and Monday to Friday and go to work. They're not like Lionel Messi out there getting paid to play Gaelic football or hurling, whatever it might be. They are amateurs. They are volunteers that play for the love of the game and the love of their culture. People really dedicate their entire lives volunteering time and resources to their local GAA just because they love the community aspect of it. They love the cultural aspect of it. Um, there's a couple mottos that are very prevalent in the GAA around the world. One of them is give respect, get respect. Another one is it's where we all belong. I think is what they say, because the community and volunteerism aspects of it are truly the foundation of how anything gets done. I know the guys over in the Rockland County GAA when they built their facility and we're putting that whole thing together and whatever you want to call it, plowing the field or whatever to level it and build the couple GAA fields that they have over there. It was men from their program with construction businesses who were contractors, et cetera, that made that happen. They didn't go out and pay for these contractors to come in and do it. It was their community that came together to make it happen. So it's really a grassroots foundation type thing that really anything gets done in the GAA. It's a completely volunteerism.
And and that to me is it's fantastic because a lot of people, they really just don't think that they don't think that their volunteering is really going to do anything. But like you said before, in any of these organizations, whatever sport, whatever organization it would be, every little bit of volunteer helps because somebody has a big load to carry that's volunteering and willing to have a little help with whatever it may be. But volunteering, guys, and if anybody that's listening right now, for any of you sports organizations, whatever it may be, volunteering as a coach or anything that has to do with the leagues is very important, guys. Because without guys like us that are doing stuff like this and volunteering and coaching, a lot of these leagues are just going to go away, and we'll become a nation of kids just sitting on their phone, or or really kids not really doing anything, and not really they kind of got to see the stuff that's going on, and we have to lead by example as parents and just and become volunteers. Now that's a question about the volunteering also. Is like I see you guys do a lot of charity work for your organization. As far as benefits and stuff like that. Now, do you guys have any charities that that you specifically like to help out, or are you guys just like an all around you like to give? Is there any specific charity that you guys work with that, to give money to as far as or help out?
Yeah, I mean, I'm totally going to draw a blank right here. We definitely contribute both financially and through services, giving the time of our own members to help out at other things. I know we've helped out with the local Meals on Wheels. There's a
Awesome,
local firefighters organization that we've
awesome,
donated money to as well for things. I believe, and I could be wrong on this. I believe we have worked with the Ryan McElroy Foundation on an event before in the past. Um, Again, this is since I'm just now coming in as chairman. I've only been here for, I mean, technically it was effective January 1st, but as of our AGM in early December, I've been here about a month as chairman, although I've been heavily involved on the board leading up to this point. But CJ, as the prior chairman, was very involved in spearheading these efforts and working with local other nonprofits and things like that. So my short answer for you is yes, absolutely. But I'm drawing a blank on what those other organizations might be. But we definitely are involved with working with other nonprofits and charities. I know on Friday last week we played the Westchester Putnam Gaelic football team in a charity match to support a nonprofit down there, and I think it was in the Mohegan Lake areas where they're based out of, and that was called Friends of Karen, I think is the name of that organization. And that they have the specifics about how the charity worked, but the GAA, not only us, it's a whole community effort of all the clubs to bring people together to promote and support other nonprofits and helping one another. I know NYPD and FDNY also do a ton of that as well. They play an annual match at usually at the Rockland GAA, which is a fundraiser. Every year, each team picks a family in need in their organizations, and they raise the money and split it between them for each of those families.
Yeah, 'cause I mean, again, just here, once you start talking about a topic, it's people come out of the woodwork that know about it. Like I was just discussing, I have a cousin, I have a cousin Kevin and his wife Maggie. They're very heavily involved over there with the Rockland GA. They own a family run business where it's called Murphy's Wood Art, where they make these we make the flags. They can do anything you want, but it's kind of like they're kind of like a little grassroots company too. And I was talking to them yesterday, and they do a lot of work with the Rockland GAA as well. And then I mentioned you guys, and they're very excited. It's like their business is taking off, and they're very heavily involved with all the Gaelic communities in the area, and that's definitely good for you guys, to get different businesses coming in to help you guys out. Because I know just talking to you, Kieran, you're 27, you're a young man, and just discussing it with you, you're gonna be there for a long time, pushing this mission. And I really give you a lot of credit, as a young man, and you really pushing the GAA and what it's doing. And I'm definitely gonna do my part to get this information out, as much as I can. So.
I
Now I'd
appreciate that.
like
Thank you.
to now I'd like to get into a little bit. We're gonna go into I'm gonna let you guys he's gonna tell you all the information once you hear about the rules and everything about how to sign up and everything. We're gonna go to the end, but I got a lot of guys out there that really don't know about the really sport in general. So if you don't mind, as like before we go into other stuff, is like maybe if you could just briefly explain the rules of Gaelic football to the people who really don't know about it.
Sure, and I'll start out by saying I know you and I joked about this previously earlier in the week, Rich, but I was not involved in the GAA my entire life. I forget if I even mentioned this earlier in this podcast, but it wasn't until I was 24 that I got involved and started playing. I had zero knowledge leading up to this point, and so the reason I say that is because a lot of people think, oh, maybe I'm too old to get started, or I know nothing about this, so how can I get my kids into it if I don't know about the sport? There's no barriers to entry. There are so many resources available to learn, and it's really, pretty intuitive and quick to pick up those skills. Of course, sure, it's going to take, a few practices to get some of the details of the skills down for yourself or your kids to learn the game and get fully acquainted with it. But from day one, our kids have been competitive. Our men's team, maybe not so much. We've just recently started getting competitive this past summer. It took us a while to get there, but it's plenty of resources out there to learn. So from there, I do want to, you know, go into the details of how the game is played. And I guess I'll start off with Gaelic football, but both Gaelic football and hurling are played with the same goals and the same scoring system. But I'll kick things off with Gaelic football, no pun intended there. And really, the way that the scoring system works, you have imagine a soccer goal with American football uprights that extend above it. Kind of like if you were to take a rugby uprights or goals, whatever they call them in rugby, and then put a net on the bottom, it would look pretty similar to that. So if you kick the ball, which is round by the way, it's not shaped like a rugby ball. It's imagine a harder version of a soccer ball, basically. If you kick it through the uprights, that's 1 point. If you score on the goal where the goalie is, that's 3 points. Now you can run with the ball in your hands, but only for 4 steps at a time. And after 4 steps, you can bounce the ball like a basketball and then keep running and take another 4 steps. But then you can't bounce it like a basketball again twice in a row. So what people do is called soloing. And soloing is really the equivalent of like dribbling the ball on the ground in soccer. So every 4 steps, you can drop the ball and do a solo, which is kicking the ball back up to yourself while running. Sounds crazy. It's probably the hardest thing to get used to in the game, honestly. It's the hardest skill. So many people who are just starting out with the game will try to avoid soloing as much as possible so they don't give up possession until they get comfortable with doing it. But effectively, that's what it is. So you'll run, you'll take 4 steps, and just like juggling a soccer ball, you basically do that while running. You drop it, kick it back up to yourself, take another 4 steps, and then you can solo again. You can solo as many times as you want in a row up and down the field for as long as you want. The only thing you can't do is dribble the ball twice in a row. Otherwise, the turnover and the other team gets the ball. The two ways to pass the ball are what's called a fist pass and a kick pass. So the fist pass or a hand pass, whatever you want to call it, um, the biggest thing with that is there needs to be what we call a striking motion. You can't throw the ball in Gaelic football at all. Otherwise, again, it's a turnover. The other team gets the ball. So imagine holding the ball in, if you're a righty, you'd hold the ball in your left hand, and you effectively need to take your other hand and smack it out of your hands to your teammate. Now, you can do that with an open hand if the person is close, or you can do what's called fisting the ball if the person is pretty far away. which is with like a clenched fist. You'll kind of punch it out of your hand to get more distance on it. Now, some refs are more lenient than others, and as you get to higher levels of playing where they're not as stringent on the rules as they are with the kids, you're going to see people, make it look like they have a striking motion, but really they're kind of shuffling the ball off and borderline like underhand throwing it to people. Um, you can get away with that with certain refs more than others, but it's not really the way the game's supposed to be played. Then a kick pass, pretty straightforward. You drop the
No, but no,
ball.
just I'm sorry to interrupt real quick, but
Oh, good. Yeah.
we watch. Listen, watch the World Cup every once in a while. I'm not a huge soccer guy, but in the sport of, I would have to say, just looking at the participants, like the participants in Gaelic football slash hurling, kind of look like they're a little bit of a tougher mold than soccer players. Like if
Oh,
I watch soccer, the thing that draws me away from soccer is the fact that these guys are always falling. They're always looking for penalties.
oh God.
Now, is this something that in Gaelic football that's kind of like that's prevalent, or is it kind of like something like, these guys are just tough guys and they just want to play? Because I see a lot of soccer players taking flops and stuff like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, like any sport, like basketball, like soccer, you're gonna get people flopping, of course. It's gonna happen, and it's definitely a point of contention in the game where people think I've only been in the world now for 3 years, but a lot of people feel like the game has gotten a little bit softer than it has in the past. But 1,000%, you've got to be built of a tougher mold than the average soccer player. When I'm talking to people, I'll usually say you've got to be a tough soccer player to be a good Gaelic football player because you can hit people, and there's absolutely no tackling. You cannot wrap people like you see in rugby or American football and tackle them down that way. But when there's a play on the ball, you can hit somebody shoulder to shoulder. So if you have the ball, Rich, and I'm coming at you, and I want to get that ball from you, so long as it's clean and it's shoulder to shoulder, and we're like looking at each other or side to side, I can hit you. But if I hit you from behind, that's a foul 10 times out of 10. I could even get carded for that, depending on the situation.
Okay, now that's let me ask you a question on the opposite end. I mean, like hockey, do they allow them to throw a couple punches, or the minute the punch is thrown, you're thrown out of the game?
No, yeah, you'd get in trouble for that. I mean, I think there's definitely an essence of toughness, as you've said, with both sports, more so in hurling than football. I have definitely seen situations where people are, throwing punches, pushing each other, in like a little scrum after a foul takes place, and they might get carded or whatever, and but they're allowed to stay in the field. It's not like hockey though, in the sense that you're going to have a brawl, get put in the sin bin for a bit, and then come back out on the field. That's not allowed.
Ah, God, sin bin. I've never heard it put that way. I like that. I like the sin bin. I do have a now this just to build on the question I have for you about the physicality of the sport. Now, obviously, other sports, like, does the physicality change as opposed to like if a kid's like a U7 player as opposed to like a U13 player and professional and on? Like I know, like again, I'm going to compare it to lacrosse because that's I have a gauge. Like I know in women's lacrosse and men's lacrosse, the physicality of the sport is completely different. Now, does the physicality change for men and women or the age of the boys and girls that are playing?
It does definitely, so just like any other sport, like how you'll see flag football for the younger kids and things like that. um, Physicality is an always present part of the game, but they do have less of a tolerance for it at the younger age levels. And if the parents of this kid are listening to this podcast, they'll probably know the exact situation I'm referencing. But there was a time a year or two ago, one of the kids on our U9 team, it would have been clean if the kid was an adult, or maybe even at like an older teenager level. But he clobbered this one kid on the other team, shoulder to shoulder contact, and blew him backwards, totally clean. He knows what he's doing. He's a very capable player, and he's watched the game. uh, Deep GAA ties in his family back to Ireland, so he knows how the game is supposed to be played. He didn't think he was doing anything wrong because he wasn't, but it was called a foul because he did hit the kid very hard. They don't want to encourage all out shoulder to shoulder contact on the field at the younger age levels. They want to encourage playing the game properly, moving the ball around, kind of a deal, not encouraging the sort of American football mentality of I just want to hit people. But to build on that, if that was me in one of our adult matches and hit somebody in that situation, it would have been perfectly clean. Play would have kept going on.
It's and
So long as
okay,
it's on the
all right.
ball, that's the big key.
What's that?
So long as it's a play on the ball, that's the big key. If you hit somebody off the ball, it's always a foul.
All right, I gotcha. Now, one more. I got one more question about the parents when it comes to because, like I said, it's obviously just dealing with parents through the years. And now in this sport, now obviously, on my end, like you got that dad that's like, I played baseball in college or whatever. Or it's like I'm living my life through my child. Like, are there parents, fathers or mothers that come say, Coach Mitchell, my kid's really good, but he really should be playing this position, or my kid really should be getting, more, getting the ball more, or he should be. Do you have parents that go in with their child as like an 8 or 9 year old kid that literally say, since I played the sport either over an island, or I was a cop, or I played the sport, that now my kid has to be the best and my kid could play any position? Do you ever run into situations with that with parents?
Well, it's funny you say that actually, because I would actually argue that the folks from Ireland or that grew up playing the game are less inclined to come out and say those types of things. I think that's something that's ever present in any sport, regardless of whether it's Gaelic football or baseball, whatever it might be. There's always going to be parents that tote that. So I don't know if it's unique to us, but it's definitely a problem, quote unquote, that we've got to work through. But like I think there's kind of a mentality of toughness going back to that of kind of like it builds character. If somebody from a background of the GAA seeing their kid being put in a position they're not generally comfortable with, or sitting them for a few minutes to give another kid playing time, like that's overcoming adversity and learning to come through challenges. I think most of those families have a stronger understanding of that kind of mental toughness and physical toughness of of the GAA, and having their kid go through that. Um, I lost my point. I was going to go somewhere else with that. I can't remember where I was going with
I,
it, but
I, I can tell you, I can
really,
tell you from my perspective that and I know that my crew of friends, they kind of feel the same way when it comes to that. But I think that when it comes to coaching, or it comes to anything in life, I think dealing with adversity and dealing with there's no second place, dealing with stuff like that. I think that's good for children to go through at any age. I think I mean, parents can help their kids to a degree, but I think at some point kids have to know how to deal with adversity. Kids have to know, like, if the kid comes onto your team and he's just killing it somewhere else, and then he comes onto your team and he's a little arrogant kid, and you say, listen, you got to sit for a little while, that's going to make the kid think. You know what I mean? So I think that dealing with adversity and dealing with sitting and realizing that you're part of a team and you're not the best. It's a team sport and you're going to contribute. I think that kids at a young age, when they do deal with that, I think that's important for kids to deal with that adversity and go through stuff like that.
yeah, and I think balance is key, honestly. And there's definitely those situations that come up where you've got to be, you know, you got to keep that in mind and cognizant of that if it's going on. But there's also a general push of making sure every kid, for example, gets playing time. It's even some clubs, like I'll use for example, there's a club called the Shannon Gales in Queens. Actually, I don't know if you were familiar. They're based out of College Point. They
Queens.
actually have in their bylaws for coaching that in the past, actually, I'll backtrack a second. Girls were allowed to play down one age grade.
Okay.
So a U11 girl could play U9 football as well as U11 football, for example. They had in their bylaws to make sure it was fair that no U11 girl playing down on U9, for example, could be out on the field if a U9 birth player was sitting, to make sure it was fair, to make sure those kids were getting the playing time and that the coach wasn't just putting out the best possible team. It's an unwritten rule. We don't have it in our bylaws or anything like that, but every kid that shows up is going to get playing time,
Good.
one way, shape, or form. And that kind of builds into what we were talking about before. If that means you sit your best player in order to get another kid out there on the field, then that's them overcoming adversity. And I think that's what every kid, I would agree with you on that, should be exposed to.
Well,
Part of the team effort.
and just talking, again, my coaching background, I coached with a bunch of dads who really cared about the sport, who really want to teach our kids. Now, I can tell you from personal, personal experience, but my buddies are listening right now. Like, I'd be the first one to rip my son off the field, if he did something wrong. Not rip him off the field. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to be the guy that says that my kid is playing no matter what, even if he messes up. We would come from a group of coaches. I coach a travel baseball team with three of my really good buddies. My coach, Jim Broughton, Scott Ferris, and Josh Shoemaker. The four of us, we lived by a law of we don't coach our own kids. If my kid screwed up, somebody else go talk to my son. And as it was, is receptive with the group. And I think that worked out pretty good. But we weren't the four guys that are willing to say, it was like, listen, our four kids are staying out there no matter what. They listen, they weren't out of the realm of being, pulled off the field if they mess up, and they were also looked at as supposed to be leaders of the team too. So when they were messing around or anything, I think that we were harder on our kids than the other kids because I think being a coach, I think that being a dad coach, I think that they had a set of precedents that there's no messing around really. We're here for a purpose, and there's no messing around. And for my dad to take me off the field, I think that shows something that nobody's out of the realm of being taken, especially my own son. And we don't play daddy ball, like that's what we call it around here.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would say that one of the biggest things that we try to tote in our coaching and overall mission of the program, it's it's retention and development. Even in Ireland, I could be getting this wrong, but I want to say from the under 13, maybe even under 15 age grade, all the way down, probably U13 would make more sense, all the way down to U7. It's considered developmental and not competitive. It is meant to promote the game, get kids playing, and to keep them playing up into their adulthood. So the reason I say that is because of the amazing opportunities that are available in the New York GAA and beyond. When I look back at the first free clinics that we ever offered at Time Warner Park back in May 2020, where kids came for, I think we did it for about 2 months. Once a week, kids would come try out the sport of Gaelic football, and they kept coming until we eventually put in a team in that following fall to compete. When I look at those kids now, who are many of them are still with our program today, and the growth that they've experienced and how much better those kids have come. Our U9 team was undefeated all of last year, won their championship, and we were a 2-year-old club at the time. Um, it's incredible, and the opportunities that exist for these kids as they get older within the New York GAA community. I think it starts at the U15 age grade. There's what's called FELA teams. I don't know if I forget what it exactly means, but they're effectively all-star teams that the New York GAA sends over to Ireland to compete in tournaments throughout the
Wow.
entire summer. So these kids, our own kids, I mean, we don't have a U15 team yet. We're only up to U13 because we're new.
Okay.
But once our kids start getting up to those age grades, they can try out for these teams down in the Bronx. And if they make it onto the Fela team of their age grade, they can participate on these teams that get flown over to Ireland to compete in these tournaments. It's an amazing experience. And it's
Well,
the
now,
same thing at the college level. And sorry, Rich, I don't mean to cut you off, but just
go
real
ahead.
quick
Go
there,
ahead.
it's gotten so competitive to the point that kids that play in this program in the New York GAA playing Gaelic football or hurling, it's so competitive that it's competing with the varsity sports at their high schools. So we don't, because again we're young, we're new, but a lot of these clubs have kids who are either choosing Gaelic football over their own varsity teams or doing them at the same time. And there's even a collegiate level New York GAA football team that goes over to Ireland and plays colleges in Ireland for a tournament. There's one or two guys on our men's team that used to play on the collegiate level team for New York. It's amazing. So that's, I say that, because I know we're getting down to about 15 minutes left. I want to make sure anyone listening to this knows like the opportunities that are available. It's not, just some kind of club for fun type thing. Fun is one of the most important things that we want, for retention and to keep the kids engaged and everything. But there's competition out there with lots of opportunities for the kids as they get older.
That's kind of where I was going with my question. It's kind of two-part question. Now, you mentioned that there's kids over here that are going to be able to, they get a team together and they could go over to, to Ireland and compete. That if a team from the United States goes over to Ireland and competes, um, how comparatively to the teams over there in Ireland, like how do we do when we go over there as a whole? Like if we men's teams or even like younger teams, like how on a whole do we go over there and get our butts kicked because it's kind of like not our sport, or do we go over there and become very competitive?
I would say the younger teams are very competitive. And you look at it, and the reason for that is because, there's not much of a difference, so to speak, with a 10-year-old. Oh, well, I guess 10-year-olds wouldn't be going over there. Let's say a 17-year-old who went up through the New York GAA program playing Gaelic football and a 17-year-old who grew up through, you know, the Kerry GAA's football program. They've both been playing their entire lives.
Okay.
And at this point, the New York GAA has been around since 1914. And in, the recent years, let's say the past 10 years maybe, have made so many developmental improvements to the program and have full-time development officers on staff to build this program that we do compete with those younger age grades over there. And even the men, depending on which team they play, they compete. I mean, I'm trying to remember. I think it was Sligo. Sligo came over to New York last year and played down at Gaelic Park against New York's senior team, they call it. That's what they call the men's team, like the top of the top best players in New York. I think New York lost by 1 point in that
Wow.
match against the Sligo men's team. Yeah. But then we went over there and traveled for a tournament called the Tolchin Cup. And, you know, New York kind of got clobbered by a team that they played Kilkenny, I think it was, and Kilkenny does not actually have a senior football club. I think they only go up to junior, and their junior football team beat our men's team. So that's the difference, I'd say.
And just to piggyback off that same question is, are there opportunity? I mean, you say, and it's an amateur sport, obviously. Now, do you think we're either A, far off from having it become, having come into our high schools and our colleges to become a competitive and maybe scholarship driven, or do you think B, it's going to remain amateur? And also, I'm sorry, a C to that question is over in Ireland. Do they do it competitively in college and high school as well? I'm sorry, that's kind of like a three part question, but just I want to know like kind of like where it is here as far as like competitively with college and high school, just clubs, and B, is it competitive on a college and high school level over in Ireland?
So I'll do my best to answer this succinctly. So going backwards, the C part, very much so at the high school and college level, do they compete on a very high level? I don't know. There's got to be colleges and high schools, depending on the area you come from, that may or may not have a GAA program with Gaelic football, hurling, or camogie. Without getting into the politics of it all, certain regions in Ireland, specifically in the north, are more prone or less prone to have a GAA in their community. So in those specific areas, they might not have a GAA club in those colleges or high schools. Whereas if you go down to County Cork, I'm sure there's not a single high school, middle school, or college that does not have a GAA club.
Okay.
We in America also have a pretty big presence in colleges. I mean, they're not, how do I word this? They're not school sports, they're club sports, but there's actually a national collegiate GAA championship every single year for Gaelic football and hurling that moves around to different locations. It's been in Las Vegas. This past year was in Florida. One of the kids on our men's football team actually plays on Purdue's
Wow.
hurling team for their GAA club, and unfortunately tore his, I want to say, ACL and meniscus over the summer, playing in the
Wow.
championship down in Florida. And then we didn't have him for the entire summer for football, but it's out there and it's very competitive. And these kids, they work to fundraise and get themselves to fly across the country for these tournaments. So it's growing in that regard as well. But I forget exactly how you worded your other question, but it's very much competitive with high school and college sports. But I don't think it's going to get to the point of scholarships. And I always think I'll say, ownership of the GAA will be retained at the club level versus college level. Because even when you look at these GAA clubs that are at schools like Purdue or Notre Dame, all these different clubs around the country, they tend to be comprised of people who come from around the country from other GAA clubs. And then just while they're at that school community, they're looking to continue that presence and continue to play, and they do that. But I very, very much think, and it's not something that has just started happening now. It's been happening for a little while now. The GAA is exploding in a good way. I mean,
Good.
the amount of people who are getting involved, the appetite for it, it's really just a knowledge barrier that needs to be overcome to teach people what it is, what the sport is all about. Anyone that gets involved is hooked instantaneously into the different aspects. I mean, Gaelic football combines soccer, American football, and rugby with basketball, like all these different skills thrown into one sport. It's amazing. So I really I don't know anyone that's been exposed to it, given it a try, and then didn't like it. The retention level is so high, and there's so many people around the country who are getting involved. It's just growing so much. The numbers who have been involved at the youth and adult levels.
Now that's, I mean, look, there's always trailblazers in something. I mean, we as a country, we have our obviously we have our four sports, and our four sports are really never going to be infiltrated. I mean, you got your other things like golf and tennis, but in the United States of America, it's like Kieran, it's like we love our baseball, football, hockey, and basketball, but throughout the years, I mean, there was obviously a trailblazer in football. There was obviously a trailblazer in baseball that made it more competitive, or actually went to a college and said, listen, there's a lot of people playing the sport on a high level. Maybe we can get a scholarship. So maybe we could get it involved in the NCAA. And there's always been a trailblazer. And listen, you're doing such great things for Dutchess County. I have to think that there's people like you, young, guys that are willing to get the word out there for a sport that a lot of people don't know about. There's got to be gentlemen like you and women like you out there that are pushing the sport, and maybe there is going to be that trailblazer. I don't know if it's going to be 10 years, 20 years, but I got to be honest with you, just doing all this research on this sport, and you're a very interesting guy, and with your Irish heritage, like, I'm going to come down and watch a couple of these games. I mean, I'll talk to you. I'm going to give you a call after this interview is over to get your information of where you guys play and everything, but I'm going to bring both of my sons down to the next time you guys have a game, or next time you guys have a practice, just to take a look at it, man. Because like you said before, I was like, I think people are afraid to try new things, and if you don't know the rules, and if you don't know, but I actually think that if a lot of these guys who have come from very competitive backgrounds and very competitive sports like football and baseball and basketball, I think if you just opened your mind a little bit and looked at a sport like Gaelic football and hurling. And I got a lot of guys that are tough. I mean, listen, I just real quick, I have a friend of mine that I want to mention his name. His name is Adrian Clark. He's an ironworker buddy of mine. He's about my age. He's 50. He's from Belfast. And I
Oh yeah.
texted him yesterday that I was doing this interview, and I think he actually might be listening right now. His response to me was, well, ask him if he wants to talk about a guy who used to kick some ass in Ireland and in America in both hurling and Gaelic football. This guy's he's a real tough dude, man. And he's like, yeah, he wants to talk to somebody who beat up a couple of people in the bars in Ireland. It sounds like, when you get to that point of, you're older and you want to compete, it's like, and it sounds like it's really like, we still got it. You know what I mean? Even at an older age. And my buddy is actually very
Hey,
interested, kind of to talk to you a little bit about it.
we got a couple guys on our team that they probably don't contribute at the level that they wish they could have when they were younger, but they're in their early to mid 50s that are still playing. We put them in a position that doesn't require them to do the bulk of the running, but they're out there, they're competing.
And that, it does. It looks like a lot of fun. Like, I got a little bit of a bad knee I'm trying to work on right now, but I think I might even give it a shot, to be honest with you. Like, I enjoy talking. I'm definitely going to come down and check this out. Because you definitely got a good. And you know what I'm saying? You know what I mean, Karen? Like, you really, it's like little things like this. Like, listen, I have a little show. I don't have many people listening, but I am very, very interested in new stuff and getting the word out there. And I think, slowly but surely, I think more people. You never know. Maybe 5, 6, 7, 10 years from now, maybe this will be. Maybe people will start souring on all the big contracts in baseball and football and basketball and say these guys, maybe they get mad and say these people are making too much money. Why don't we look at another sport? Why don't we give these guys that are playing these sports like Gaelic football and hurling and name your other sport? Maybe we should start maybe contributing assets to that kind of sport, because then maybe these big baby athletes in America won't say they need 3, 400, $500 million just to go out there and play a sport that they're supposed to love.
Exactly, and that's the people that play this game. They play it for the love of the game. They
Exactly.
dedicate their lives to it. The New York GAA hurling team is over in Ireland right now competing in a tournament. I think their next match is on Saturday, the Shield match. They won one and lost one, so they have like a consolation game on Saturday now. But these guys are a lot of them are union employees like yourself. They're some of them could be iron workers. I'm not sure. Many of them are carpenters and construction workers. They're taking time off work right now to compete over in Ireland for a week. And that is what true love of the game is. What is more of an example of that than what they're doing? They're not being paid for this. Of course, I'm sure their plane tickets are paid for. It's not costing them the money to be there, but that's the essence of what we're doing, and it's not going to take, it's already taking Dutchess County by storm. There's so many people getting involved, new registrations coming in every single week, and anyone, like I said before, anyone that gives it a try falls in love with it and sticks with it. And I truly, truly think, like you said, 5, 7, 10 years time, we're going to be massive. I mean, we've already grown so much in 2 or 3 years to somewhere between 100 and 150 registrants in our program that we're going to be at, if we wanted it to be a self-sustaining point, having our own league within Dutchess County if we wanted to. So that's the idea. That's where we're growing to, and I definitely think it's not in the distant horizon.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, and that's really really great to hear. And I know you're a busy guy, and you got to run soon. And I know I just want you to if you can, maybe I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. If you want to kind of sell the GAA and Gaelic football to my guys out there, because guys, listen up, man, because he's doing great things, and I'm gonna go down there and check it out. But can you tell me, like, sort of like, where your organization, like, where they start? They start at 7, 8, like, how much it costs to play and stuff like that. Just give us a little bit of, maybe I just call it a commercial, for the GAA,
Sure.
get some guys involved.
I've never had to do an elevator pitch for the GAA like this before. I've only had to do it for work, so I'll do my best. But we start with the kids. Believe it or not, we'll let kids come out as young as 3.5, 4 years old to practice
Wow.
on the under 17. So in America, different from Ireland, like I mentioned before, with the developmental ages, U7 is actually the only developmental age grade where they actually call them go games. They don't keep track of the score. The referees, rule keeping is very, very lax. So while it's very difficult for 3.5 or 4 year olds to compete with 7 year olds out on the field, they don't tend to play in most of the like games that go on. They come to practice, they play. Kids can get involved as young as that age. Um, it's actually 100% free to play with us at
Unbelievable.
either the
I'm
youth
sorry,
or the adult
Kieran. I'm
level.
sorry. I'm sorry to cut you off real quick, but I
No,
like when I read that on your website, I almost fell off a chair. Everything is
yeah,
completely free. Can you elaborate on that, please? I almost fell out of my chair.
yeah, so we've had travel soccer families join us and come to these tournaments that are either at our field or down in Queens and at College Park where the Shannon Gales play or the Rockland GA, and they've seen these facilities with and I'm serious, like these clubs own their properties with the 2 or 3 fields and a clubhouse and all this stuff. We all play, the kids and the adults. They play for free because the love for these organizations is so massive. The amount of fundraising efforts where the community gets behind these field days or Irish festivals or whatever kind of event you want to run to raise some money for the club, that's how we keep the fees at zero for the family because the community gets together and does what they can. We host golf outings, whatever it is that we can do to bring in money so that there's no financial barrier to entry. Anyone can join, anyone can play and give it a try. Um, that that is what we want because we don't want anyone to say I'm not paying for that, I'm not going to play. These travel soccer families that join us, we're dumbfounded. Like when I first told them that, there was a few families that joined us over the summer that were playing with our under 13 team, and they're like, all right, so this is my first game, like what do I owe you guys to play? And I said nothing. And they're like, what? And I was like, yeah, like we're not going to charge fees because we do X, Y, and Z to raise money and they make it free for you to play. And they couldn't believe it. They're like, if this was a travel soccer program, we'd be paying thousands of dollars to do this. But
I mean,
we
I've
managed
been
to
involved. I've been heavily involved in the travel baseball community for the last, I'd have to say, 10 years. With both of my kids playing travel baseball, and I know a lot of these guys listening. I mean, Kieran, we've spent thousands and thousands of dollars in the last years. I mean, just talk about programs that are charging 5, 6, 7 grand just to play on their team, and they're not even, and it's become so watered down that there's so many travel teams out there, and all these
yeah,
kids that want to play. Like a lot of these organizations, they're literally just taking people's money, and it's like, and with
yeah,
no regard for teaching the kids how to play. I mean, obviously there's your staple organizations, but for the last 5 or 6 years, with the travel community is getting so big, it's like there's people just opening up the doors to anybody and literally just taking checks. And I'm hearing people say that, listen, if your kid's not good enough to play on a high level travel team where you're going to pay $7,000, don't get mad if he sits, because a lot of these organizations are just taking the money and they're taking a check and they're not doing anything for it. Whereas you guys are an organization where you stress the fact that it's free and volunteer driven and all sorts of stuff like that. Is like in my head, like, again, I have to say it again. I almost fell out of my chair when I saw that everything was completely free, all the way up into every level. And you guys are doing great things in that aspect. And if you continue that, because people are going to see that, and eventually people are going to catch on to be like, why are we? Listen, my kid's not my kid. I knew all along. I paid the money. I was, I did it, but I knew all along that my son, even one of my sons, were going to be playing shortstop for the New York Mets. So at some point in time, there's a lot of these organizations that open up that do accept all this money because a lot of these parents do think their kids are going to be playing shortstop for the Mets or do think they're going to be the quarterback for the Jets. Well, in actuality, this is a sport that's well, for boys. I have two boys. It keeps the kids out of trouble. It focuses them on something. It makes them work on their grades. That aspect. But don't walk onto a travel team and give this guy $7,000 and think your kid is top notch because he plays on his top program. Travel sports and youth sports are there for a reason. And I think the reason being is to make them be a part of something, to let them know how to be part of a team, to let them deal with a little, like you said, adversity, and let them telling them what to do. I think sports for boys and girls and men and women is very good for them in the aspect is you get to deal with people, and even at a young age, you get into a sport at like 4 or 5 years old. You're being coached at that age. You're surrounding yourself with other kids. It's just a social aspect of it is so much more important than I'm the best on the field. You could be able to talk to other kids. You can be able to talk to adults when you're older, and you're gonna have just some kind of like a bond with like the outside world. And I think that is very. And I'm talking from a sports perspective because that's what I grew up in. But there's other outlets also. But sports at a young age and even are so good for kids, just in the aspect that it gives them, it gives them the skills to to be a person in the outside world. I mean, do you disagree? Agree with me with that statement?
I completely agree. And I really there's two more points that I really wanted to touch on. I'd be remiss if I don't by the end of this conversation to build on what you're talking about right now. I mean, the the notion that paying all this exorbitant money for a travel hockey team, travel baseball team, soccer team is going to get your kids to that professional level. And I don't know, maybe parents are living vicariously through their children in these situations. I don't know, like you said before, but it's such a, I'm gonna say, like, burden on the kids, the pressure put on these kids to do all these things where, I'm not comparing myself to these people, but I grew up, I was a pretty competitive athlete, particularly in baseball. I played with a bunch of kids that were much better than me that were phenoms and went on to play at D1 schools, went on to play even in the minor leagues, and then fizzled out,
Yeah,
and they're never going to make it to the big level. Why put your kids through that? Why pay all that money when you know maybe they're not enjoying it as much as you think they are? And you're paying all this money when there's options out there. I'm gonna quote the GAA, of course, because that's what we're here for, where it's completely free, and the skills that your kids build in this program through the sports that we play will make your kids better in things like basketball, soccer, rugby, or American football. The I don't want to go through all the ins and outs of how the game works, but just every little thing that you do, whether it's dribbling the ball, whether it's the hand-eye coordination with soloing as you're running, punting that ball through the uprights, hand passing, and leading the person with that pass over the heads of a couple other people, and stamina above all. It's one of the fastest games out there. It's we've said from day one, you play Gaelic football, it's going to make you better at every other sport you play. Same with hurling. If you're a baseball player, hockey player. Um, I've only just started getting into the world of hurling. I don't know it all, so I can't pretend to know it as much as I do Gaelic football. But they all combine so many aspects of different sports that will improve your kids' skills in those other sports, and definitely worth giving it a try at least. And the other thing I really have to mention, or I'd be kicking myself for not mentioning this. Before the end, talking about the financial aspect and the fundraising and all that good stuff. And I don't, anyone listening to this later on, like I apologize to any members of our program that I may not mention by name, but I've got to mention Emmett Woods um, in this podcast. He's the owner of Mahoney's Irish Pub in Poughkeepsie. He has been probably the biggest asset to our program since day one. Somebody to lean on and learn from. He was one of the key people involved in the Rockland GAA getting to where it is now, with their own field and clubhouse and all that stuff, putting them on a whole nother level of competitiveness, um, financially sound situation, and all that. He has been the mastermind behind our fundraising, with making the decisions that we've made, and just a general resource to lean on. He was the chairman in the past for the Rockland GAA. He sits on our board right now. My family jokingly calls him the GAA Godfather, because anyone or anything you need to know about the GAA, he's your man. Um, he's been, you know, words can't describe what he's done for our program, for CJ as the chairman before me, and for me now as the chairman as well. He's really been so insightful to getting us to where we are with helping to market ourselves and fundraise to get the money that we need to do the things that we do. Um, he comes from a town called Pomeroy in Northern Ireland in County Tyrone, where football is life for them. It's a huge aspect of their life, and the GAA is massive to them. And we fortunately have a few people in our program who are from his town who have helped out a lot. So again, don't mean to not name call other people. It's a slippery slope, or you might forget other names as well. But I had to throw him in there, and a thank you to him. Um, and of course, if you're in the area, stop by Mahoney's Irish Pub.
Absolutely, we've been there plenty of times. I love it up there. My buddy does some a couple every once in a while. He's got a band and he does a show up there. We've done some fundraisers for our baseball teams in the past. My buddy Doug's got Noise
Oh,
in the
great.
Basement and Chance Fiasco. Their band, and they do some fundraisers up there.
Oh, wait, what's his name?
Doug Gerasi?
Oh, I thought you said Dave. Okay, never mind.
Yeah, he's like I say, he's got a band. He's got a cover band. He's an older guy like myself with kids and everything, and he's a local rock star, and he does a lot of his shows up there. We love Mahoney's Irish Pub. As a matter of fact, now they
Yeah,
gave me the guy's name. I might stop up there and have a pint and try and talk to that Emmett Wood. You said his name was, huh?
Emmett Woods. That's right. Yep.
Yeah, like I said, we were talking the other day. Maybe that's going to be the spot where me and you could meet to have a pint of beer and talk. Talk about some real stuff. You know what I mean? Because literally, like I said to
That's
you
the spot.
yesterday, I feel you at 27 and me at 50. With our family and the love for our Irish heritage, I kind of feel that we think very parallel about that kind of stuff. And we could. Listen, we could
Absolutely.
we could probably talk for hours. I'm very happy that I feel I met a new friend through Kevin McCarthy, and I really enjoy talking to you, Kieran.
Same here, Rich. I mean, like you said before, I could talk about this all day, and I know we've got a bit of a time constraint and everything, and I've done my best to answer your questions as succinctly as possible. But I could have gone on so much longer with so many of these details, and there's a couple things that I haven't even gotten to mention, like talking about the details of hurling and how long Matt and Gaelic football has been around. Hundreds of years. Hurling's been around for thousands of years. It's the
Exactly.
oldest field sport in the world, and Gaelic football has been around since the 1600s. So it's amazing. I could
That's
go
kind
on
of that's kind
forever
of my
about it all.
question to you. Like I said, I know you're a busy guy and you got stuff going on. Because if we started talking on this other topic that I want to discuss, we could probably do another 3 hour podcast. I mean, Kieran, I would literally, I mean, as soon as you want to, or anytime you want to, I would love. There's two things I would love to discuss with you on a podcast. I mean, I'd like to talk to you personally, but these are two things that I think that people should know about. And the one thing I'd really like to talk about is the sport of hurling and what a tough man's sport that is. I mean, I was watching
Yeah,
videos last night, dude. I can't believe that you do this. I mean, if you don't leave that, if you don't, I guess they call it a pitch. If you don't leave that pitch with
yeah.
blood on your face, I'd have to assume that it was a bad day. You know what I mean?
I
I,
mean, yeah. I mean, I've only just started getting into it. I've played one match so far with the Rockland GAA. They recently put a novice men's hurling team together. They hadn't had hurling for years, and they're recently making a big push to have a presence in the hurling community in New York now. So I've recently started playing for them since I'm on the level of some of the guys there. There's plenty of very experienced guys on that team, but as well, a few like myself who had never played before. But yeah, I'm definitely not one of the toughest guys out there on that field. Those guys, I've heard some people say you got to be a little crazy to play hurling, and so maybe I am a little crazy, but not as crazy as some of these guys. I mean, when the ball is on the ground and people are fighting for it and smacking their hurleys, trying to get that ball and hitting each other in the shins, I'm the guy standing behind them waiting for the ball to pop out. I'm not getting involved in that mess.
but I'm sure you have some. I'm sure you have some enforcers on your team that if anybody messes with you, I guess you like little Gretzky if you want to equate it to hockey. And I'm sure people have your back out there.
Oh, they do. Yeah, there's some big guys on that team for sure, straight from Ireland.
And another thing I want to discuss with you, and again, that's going to take a while. I want to discuss the history of the GAA. Now, I could ask you like a couple of questions, but the questions I want to ask, we could definitely go on for about another hour at least. So if you have some time, even we could discuss because obviously we're new friends now, Kieran. Now you're not going to get rid of me. We're going to be
Absolutely.
talking a lot because
No,
I
I
like
don't
a
want
lot of
to.
what you're saying today, and I think we have a lot of
Yeah,
we live kind of parallel lives at different ages. So I think I made a friend today.
absolutely. Likewise. And not to put you on the spot about it, but I mean, it's not a bad idea for maybe to do a little series on it. Maybe one conversation about the history of the GAA as a whole. Maybe one to talk a bit more about Gaelic football specifically instead of just our club. and maybe another one on the ins and outs of hurling. Whatever you want to do, it's all whatever you want. I'm here.
You know what it is, Kieran? Like again, I'm starting. I've been starting, from the ground up. I got my friends listening. I do it from my house, and I'm trying to find my niche. You know what I mean? Like, I did a wrestling podcast with my buddy. I'm kind of trying to find my niche, and just by doing all the research on like this specific sport, I think I can have a little niche with this, especially with a little bit of the help from you. And maybe if I went up to, like, I wrote, I would even like to, if you had a match with your buddies, after a hurling match, I would love to come down with the microphone and just sit and have a couple of beers with you guys, maybe 5 or 6 players from the team. We just bullshit about, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
bullshit about the sport and what it takes. I would love to do that, dude. Like, obviously I could carry a conversation. I mean, I don't care, I don't care if there's 5 people or the whole entire team. I would love to just sit down and find out like what it really takes, like with you and all your buddies, and why at 27 or 30 or 50, why these guys go out there, and want to get their asses kicked, for lack of a better term, you know what I mean? Because, I'm getting up there in age. I'm a good athlete, but the fighting side of me is back in Queens. So, but yeah, Kieran, like I said, with your help, and I hope that we could discuss this later on. I'll give you a call, and I hope with your help that maybe I could find my little niche in this, and maybe I could start doing some live feeds from your games, or interview some of your buddies.
We would absolutely love that. We certainly have there's an opportunity there for both of us because we could certainly use somebody doing it, and it sounds like it would be a great thing for you as well. And for anyone who's currently listening or listens to the recording of this in the future, if you want to find out more about us, visit our website. I'm sure Rich will put this out there as well, but our website is Dutchess, GAA.org, or you can find us on Facebook as well.
All right, that's Dutch. You got that, guys. DutchessGAA.org. Kieran, this was a lot of fun, man. We did over an hour, and I could have talked to you for 3, but I
Likewise.
really appreciate you giving my audience out there and everybody. I even sent an email to the NYPD and the FDNY. I got my cousin actually working on the guy from the FDNY who will hopefully be able to post our interview on maybe
Great.
some of their sites. So I've been in contact with a lot of the Gaelic football clubs, and just wait. I got 2 emails back already that said it was okay, but I'm actually trying to get the word out for you guys as well, because you guys, Dutchess County, we're trying to get the word out. Let's try and get the word out all over the place as much as we can. You know what I'm saying?
You're the man. Absolutely. Yeah. Whatever we can do to, like I said, break that knowledge barrier and get more people involved. We love that. It's a fantastic organization, and it's all based on community. We all come together and help each other and work together, support each other's local businesses and all that good stuff. So definitely give it a try.
All right, Kieran. Well, thanks a lot for giving us your time today, and I'm sure I'm going to be fielding some questions from a lot of my friends. And listen, brother, I'll give you a call later on and discuss what we're going to do with the interview. And I really enjoyed talking, and enjoy the rest of your day, my man.
Thank you, Rich. Same to you. It was my pleasure. Had a fantastic time. I could have talked for hours on end about this, but I really appreciate you taking the time to do this for both of our sakes, and looking forward to our future talks.
Awesome. All right, Kieran. Thanks a lot, man. We'll
All
talk
right.
to you.
Thank you. Yep. Bye.
All right, guys. Well, you guys just got yourselves a little. You guys got yourselves a little a little look into the world of Gaelic football slash hurling and the Dutchess, Gaelic Athletic Association. Kieran is definitely going to be a new friend to the show, and I was introduced to him through Kevin McCarthy, a longtime friend of myself, who was in the Fishkill community. I don't know, guys. I got a couple people out there. I'm allowing call-ins here. If anybody wants to call in and talk a little bit, if anybody has any questions, you guys can call in. But I really, really enjoyed talking with Kieran, and we are definitely going to be in contact real soon about doing some stuff. And like I said, guys, I am looking for my niche, and I'm a very inquisitive guy. I like to talk. All my friends know I like to talk. Everybody out there knows I like to talk. I'm trying to find my niche. I'm kind of trying to find my retirement plan, as I say. Maybe this could be it. All right, guys. Well, I'm gonna sign off now. Like all normal adults, I have some stuff I got to take care of today. So we are gonna sign off as well. And me and E Dubs sounds like he's out there. Listen, E Dubs, call me later because we need to get episode 26. Oh, E Dubs is gonna call in. There's my partner. Where are you, partner? Here he comes. E Dubs, you there, bub? Try calling in again. There it is. There you go. E!
Here.
E.
Hey, what's up? What's up, Murph? I had a meeting. I had to sign on and off, but awesome. Very good interview there, Rich. Yeah, very new sport that I never even knew about. Basically, I know they had hurling at. Is it hurling, Rich? Hurling? They had it
Hurling,
at
yes.
City Field, I think, a couple of years ago. They had a match. I don't know if you guys discussed that or not, but.
E.
But yeah, I know.
Eric.
I asked about it years ago. And it's like, what is that? So,
Eric, I'm telling you right now,
but
listen, listen, I know you're not a snobby sports guy. I know like we make fun of soccer and stuff like that, but E, you got to come with me, bro. I was watching some videos on hurling, Gaelic foot. These are tough dudes, man. They really are. And this is a
Yep.
sport, this is a sport that I literally think that all these sports that me and you talk about, the baseball, the football, the basketball, I don't understand why a sport like this doesn't catch on. Because the fact of the matter is, these are tough dudes, man. It's a combination, like, listen, Gaelic football, combination of kind of like soccer and American football. Then you got, then you got hurling, which is kind of a combination, maybe hockey, and these guys are really, really competing. And did you hear the key word that he said? Now, everybody out there listening, guys, if anybody's out there, I don't know if Kevin's out there. I don't know what name he goes under, but Kevin was explaining to me, like me and Kevin go back to Fishkill Little League, and all of a sudden, Kevin disappeared from Fishkill Little League. Not disappeared, but I seen him after that. I was like, where'd you go? He's like, Rich, I went down to Gaelic football, and both of my kids play Gaelic football. It is a phenomenal sport, and is a phenomenal way for kids to. Yes, Maggie, thank you so much for tuning in, Maggie. I'm sorry, I have a hard time sometimes. So, conversing back and forth with all the different stuff I got going on. But Maggie, thank you so much for you and Kevin be tuning in. I'm going to be doing a lot of stuff. I'd like to get in touch with the Rockland GAA as well, and I think I'm going to find my niche here with this stuff, guys, and maybe you guys could help me out. But you got to check the
Hey,
sport out, dude.
yeah, Rich. I just want to give breaking news in the sports world. Damar Hamlin, Buffalo Bills cornerback, showing signs of awake. He's awake and showing signs of improvement. So that just broke minutes ago that he's awake and showing significant signs of improvement. So that's a big story that's been happening this week, Rich.
Yeah, yeah. That's good. Listen, good for that. That was very scary the other night, man. Back we were doing back to just to rewind about the conversations I was just having with Kieran about sports in general. It's like when you get on that field, it's on these physical sports, and I understand that everybody knows that there could be that there's that opportunity that you could get hurt really bad, and just to watch that kid get in there the other night and make that play and then just stand up. The most scary part about that was I think that if he got hit and he was laid out and we kind of didn't know what was going on, we'd be like, I think it's a little worse that watching him stand up and then just watching him fall to the ground. That was very disturbing to me, dude.
Yeah, and we'll talk about more tomorrow on our episode tomorrow night. But just wanted to put it out there that the kid's hanging in there, and hopefully we see a full improvement. That would be the best news of the year so far.
Exactly. All right, my friend. So listen, you're at work, right?
Yeah, I'm working from home today. Just wanted to sign on for a couple of seconds, get a cup of coffee, but got to head out. So
All right,
thanks
my friend.
again, Rich. I'm going to go listen to it its entirety this afternoon. But you did a great job, buddy.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, E. I appreciate it. Give me a call later, brother, okay?
Will do. Take care, man.
And Maggie, I did watch the girls play too. The girls are tough. I did a lot of research yesterday on these sports, and not only are the men tough, these girls are badass as well. And I think it's very, very important that everybody out there listens to a guy like Kieran, because this is a guy who came from a background, as you said, of baseball. He grew up here. He went to high school up here, and he kind of got into the organization because of the fact that he saw a connection with the community. He's a young guy. He's one day he'll be married probably and have children of his own. And this is going to be something that I wish all of you guys out there would promote, because when I read that all this stuff is free and all this nickel and diming bullshit that we do with the travel baseball teams and the football and the equipment and how much does this cost and how much does that cost. You go down to you go talk to this guy Kieran, you walk into his office or wherever he may be, and you talk to him about Gaelic football or hurling, and then you ask him how much this is going to cost. All he's going to say to you is, you know what's going to cost? Just a little bit of your time. And when I say a little bit of your time, these guys do so much good stuff. They have benefits, they have charities, they have golf outings, they have a thing called Friendsgiving that they did. As long as you volunteer, and it's food and it's fun times and it's good and it's all free. All they ask you guys for is just a little bit of your time, which is pretty much what, as a whole, at youth sports is what we are asking for as parents that have brought their kids through the youth sports organization. We're just looking for some participation from the parents. And I understand that parents have really, really, crazy lives. And I do understand that. And I do sympathize with that. But the fact of the matter is that for 8, 9, 10 years, I'd be down awake at 3:30 in the morning, taking a train, getting up, going to work, working all day, and then literally running over to Shepherd or running over to Poughkeepsie or running over to wherever it may be that where I was coaching or my kids were playing, literally in dirty work clothes after building New York City all day. I would show up and coach. It's funny, like a lot of my buddies would make fun of me because I'd be there coaching third base in a pair of overalls and a pair of work boots, and everybody else be all buttoned up in their college shirts and their coaches shirts. Where there's me at third base running here from New York City just to be a part of something and to let my kids know that yes, I care, and let my kids know that yes, we're a part of this community. So, and that to me is very special. And I, me personally, as far as Fishkill community, and I know I talk about it all the time, and everybody's got their own story about their communities. I didn't grow up here. Me and my wife came up here about 18 years ago from Queens, and trying to make friends up here. I'm a very social guy. I can make friends on the whole, but I have not made better friends or better people than the people that I've met through youth sports, whether it be basketball, whether it be baseball, and we're heavily involved in the baseball community. I have met some of my closest friends through youth sports. And parents, if you guys are out there and you see a kid, he's just sitting there and he's really just not doing anything, well, go in there and ask him how he's doing. Go ask him, especially if you guys got teenagers. I know I said this a couple of weeks ago when the holidays were here, and I've just been hearing stories about, some of my friends and some people you read, like, I have boys. Now, boys are very tough nuts to crack, as far as asking them, if everything's okay. Yeah, boys, I can't talk to this point because I don't have girls, but I'm sure it's the same with girls. Just knock on the door every once in a while and just ask him if he's okay or ask if they're okay. Listen, the response to the person, to you might be, I'm fine, or just leave me alone, or whatever. But you know what, though? In the back of their mind is they know that, we're watching and we care. And I truly feel that I was put here to become a parent of my two boys. And I take that very seriously. And my whole community and my whole support group of friends that have children as well. And I know they feel the same way. So again, I'm getting a little emotional on this podcast because I like to thank all of you guys out there. You guys are all listening. You definitely know who you are. I like to thank you guys for welcoming my family into the community and welcoming my children into the sports world because God only knows. I don't know where I would have found such a good support group up here when I moved up here. My family is very, 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 very thankful for all this. All right, guys. I'm going to sign off now. Like I said, I got stuff to do. So me and E are going to get together later on and discuss when we're going to do episode 27. As always, thank you for all the support. I'm going to be putting my interview out here with Mr. Kieran Mitchell out in all podcast forms, guys. So please, if anybody listening today, get the word out. If you know anybody that's interested in youth sports, anybody that's interested in finding another sport, please let them know about this podcast. Send it, share it to anybody, spread it by word. Listen, I don't care about the views I just want the word to be spread about our show. We're doing good stuff over here. And anybody else out there that wants to give me a call, email me about getting a sport out there or somebody that's doing something good for their community, reach out to me at any time because I'd be happy to do it. All right, guys. Well, I will see you guys in the next couple of days when me and E do episode 27. As usual, thanks for listening and later. Let's see how the video came out.